from their homes, we are looking at the toxic stress of war, the emotional and psychological toll that armed conflict has on everyone who's caught up in it. And most importantly, what can be done to protect people and help them recover? Because what's happening in Europe is, of course, mirrored around the globe. This is a global issue. From conflicts in Yemen, Ethiopia, Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa to the Middle East and Asia. Over 80 million people, and that is 1 in every 95 people on Earth, have had to flee their homes, and so many of them are children. So we're going to investigate what kind of mental health support is available, what works and what doesn't, with some of the leading global experts in the field of war and trauma. And we'll be hearing from you, our listeners, about your own experiences, and thank you so much for sharing those with us. But first of all, let me welcome our panel. From London, we have a man who has done so much over so many years to develop evidence-based care for children who are caught up in war zones. He's Emeritus Professor of Applied Child Psychology at the Institute of Psychiatry at King's College London, Bill Ewell. And Bill is also one of the founders of the Children and War Foundation, set up in the 1990s after the Balkan conflict. And from Sweden, I'm delighted to welcome Professor Emily Holmes from the Department of Psychology at the University of Uppsala. I've been following Emily's research for many years because she uses such original techniques to help people, including refugees, to cope with traumatic memories, and the work is always backed up by excellent research evidence. And from Geneva in Switzerland, Dr. Peter Ventervogel is a psychiatrist and a medical anthropologist, and he is Senior Mental Health Officer with UNHCR, the refugee agency at the United Nations, and constantly sees what's happening on the ground because he's been working in war zones for the past 2 decades. Well, thank you, all of you, for joining me. You know so much about this topic that I was so pleased that you could all make it. Now, thinking about Ukraine for a moment, Peter, I wonder if you could tell us briefly, what is the latest situation in Ukraine? Because the number of displaced people I know is enormous, isn't it?
That's right. UNHCR publishes daily the updates of people who've been forced to flee. And when the war started, the planning figure was that in the worst-case scenario, by the end of June, we would have 4 million refugees in Europe. And we've reached that point today already in slightly more than a month. So it's a very grave